Well, after the mayhem that we had on stage 8 with 30 riders up the road finally neutralised, would a breakaway make it up the road? Going all in, as you will, ahead of the rest day. Well, the parcours certainly suggested it could happen. And when you saw the wind as well, crosswinds were going to be an issue during the day. It meant this was going to be a lively start, not least because the wind was blowing in from the east, which meant a tailwind to get everybody going. They were on the rollers before the start. This was at least going to feature a breakaway. Of what composition? Nobody quite knew. Sepp Kuss resplendent in the leader's jersey, backed up by a highly efficient Jumbo-Visma team that looked like they're on the way to winning just about everything at the moment. Well, the first categorised climb came early in the first third of the race for a full distance of 185 kilometres, but really it was the sequence of walls that made up the final climb in many steps that really drew the eye. So the breakaways were each neutralised again and again, and almost by accident Jumbo-Visma found themselves accidentally up front with 6 riders towards the fore, along with Remco Evenepoel and Catania from Soudal Quickstep. Well, the peloton must have thought to themselves, isn't it supposed to be us up the road and you guys chasing? Well, order was achieved about 10 or 15 kilometres later. A very strong breakaway went up the road, but the big factor of the day was indeed the wind. Huge splits opened up as crosswinds had an impact, and some big names were caught out, including Lenny Martinez, former leader with Groupama Francis de Jeux. They were battling to close the gap. Bora Hansgrohe joining forces with Jumbo-Visma, not chasing down their own man Lenny Kemna, who was up front, but trying to get a margin for Alexander Vlasov in the overall standings. Well, honours even, the big groups regathered themselves, but heavy rain at the finish and mud on the course meant that the organisers declared the finish line for the GC men to be 2 kilometres from the finale. So less stress perhaps, and then less importance in catching the breakaway. With those bonus seconds disappearing up the road, it was down to these men to decide who would get there first. Stage win up for grabs then for those at the head of the road, and 5 minutes now further back, it was all about the GC running for kilometre 2 to go. Lenny Kemna hit the climb with 8 remaining, so the full distance of this to be contested by the breakaway. Chris Hamilton was the first to respond for DSM Firmenich, doing a great job, but ultimately he was to run out of resources. Coming through, Matteo Sobrero, it was still getting cagey. Gebi Chabier from Little Trek was also very much involved. The GC battle, well, it was all about honour really, and Remco Evenepoel was one of those that decided he'd like to test Roglic. Meanwhile, up front, 4.8 kilometres to go, Lenny Kemna left Sobrero, nearest man to him, and then just had to deal with ramps of around 20-23% all the way home. A big ask. Well, with the finish line looming for those further down the mountain, it was Ayuso that went for it, looking for bonus seconds. Alexander Vlasov set off as well, thinking, well, you know what? It's going to be tightly packed around the top 10. Why should I not be part of that? Just behind was that group with Evenepoel and Roglic, who were about to get into fisticuffs. There was the GC finish line as declared, but still a stage win up for grabs. This was Roglic responding to an attack by Evenepoel. There would be a couple of seconds between them by the end, but nothing too bad ahead of a rest day and of course a time trial. So the GC battle had been declared at the foot of the final ramp, but out front there was a man who was looking to write pages in his own history book. Sepp Kuss saying thank you very much to teammates around him. Kemna was pushing on, already a stage winner in the Giro d'Italia and the Tour de France. He puts this in his back pocket as well. The full set belongs to the young German, and how delighted was he. Coming home second, Matteo Sobrero, but there were some big gaps even amongst the breakaway. The heat was out of the GC battle, and they rolled in with smiles upon their faces. None broader, though, than that on the visage of Lenny Kemna. He'd done it. Full set of stage wins, one in each of the Grand Tours, and possibly more to come from this man who regards himself as a breakaway king. Well, all the others came home through the clouds, through the mud, and indeed got the applause that they duly deserve. Sepp Kuss is our leader, holds the same margin as the start of the day, going into the rest day, and of course that run around Valladolid and the time trial. How will Sepp Kuss stand up? Well, he says he's going to give it his best go. Valladolid, big transfer to get there, and we're just hoping the rain stays away. It's quite a technical circuit in places, plenty of 90-degree turns along the way, and 25.8 kilometres to be dealt with. First though, the very important duty of having a break before the hostilities begin in this magnificent tour.